Imagine this. You're hosting the most important celebration of your life. Family has traveled from distant places. The entire community is watching. Your reputation is on the line, and you run out of wine. The celebration continues, but you have nothing left to serve. The shame is crushing. The humiliation is public. 2,000 years ago, at a wedding in a small village called Cana, this nightmare became reality. The wine ran out. In a culture where hospitality was sacred and weddings lasted 7 days, running out of wine wasn't just embarrassing. It was a social catastrophe, a disgrace that would follow the family for generations. But among the guests was a woman who knew someone who could help. She turned to her son and said 3 simple words. They have no wine. Her son's name was Jesus. He had never performed a public miracle. His ministry hadn't officially begun. He told his mother, "My hour has not yet come." But what happened next would change everything. This isn't just the story of Jesus turning water into wine. This is the story of his first miracle. In the region of Galilee, about 9 miles north of Nazareth, sat a small village called Cana. It wasn't famous. It wasn't wealthy. It was just home to Mary, to the bride and groom, to their families and friends. And a wedding was about to begin in first-century Jewish culture. Weddings weren't one-day events. They were week-long celebrations. The entire village would be invited. The groom's family would provide food and wine for 7 days of feasting, music, dancing, and joy. This wasn't just a party. It was a sacred responsibility. Hospitality was a matter of honor. The groom's family had been preparing for months, saving money, storing food, calculating how much wine they would need for hundreds of guests over 7 days. They had planned carefully. They thought they had enough. They were wrong. Among the invited guests was Mary, the mother of Jesus. And with her came Jesus and his newly gathered disciples: Peter, Andrew, James, John, Philip, Nathanael, and others. Jesus' disciples were new to following him. They had left their fishing boats, their tax collector's booth, their normal lives. But they hadn't seen him do anything miraculous yet. The celebration began with all the joy and energy of a Jewish wedding. Music filled the air. People danced. Children ran between tables. Friends embraced. Stories were told. Laughter echoed. And wine flowed freely. Day 1 went perfectly. Day 2 was wonderful. But somewhere around day 3, someone in the groom's family began to notice. The wine jars were emptying faster than expected. The supply wasn't going to last. By the time they realized the problem, it was too late to fix it. The wedding was in progress. Guests were everywhere, and the wine was running out. And then it happened. A servant poured the last cup. The final jar was empty. The wine was gone, and the feast continued. Mary noticed. Mary understood immediately. This was a disaster in progress. The shame would be crushing. The family would never live it down. The marriage would begin under a cloud of humiliation. And Mary did something remarkable. She didn't panic. She didn't gossip about the poor planning. She didn't distance herself from the problem. She went to Jesus, because Mary knew something the others didn't. She had raised this man. She knew who he was. And if there was no wine, and he was here, that was all that needed to be said. Jesus' response is fascinating. "Woman, why do you involve me? My hour has not yet come." This wasn't the time. This wasn't the place. This wasn't how he planned to reveal his glory. And yet, Mary turned to the servants and said, "Do whatever he tells you." She didn't argue. She didn't push. She just told others to obey him. She knew that even if his hour hadn't come, his heart could be moved. Even if the timing seemed wrong, his compassion was real. And Jesus, seeing the need, moved by his mother's faith, aware of the shame about to fall on this family, made a decision. He would act, not with fanfare, not with announcement, but he would act. His first miracle would be private, practical, and perfect. By the way, if you find these videos interesting, meaningful, or enjoyable, please consider subscribing. It really helps. Nearby stood 6 stone water jars. They weren't wine containers. They were for Jewish ceremonial washing. According to the law, people would wash their hands before eating. With hundreds of guests, these large jars were necessary. And at this point in the feast, after days of guests washing hands, the jars were probably empty or nearly empty. They had served their purpose. They were just sitting there, empty vessels waiting. Jesus turned to the servants and said, "Fill the jars with water." Imagine being those servants. Your master's celebration is falling apart. The wine is gone. The shame is coming. And this guest, this carpenter's son from Nazareth, tells you to fill water jars? Not wine jars. Water jars. With water, not wine. This makes no sense. But the servants obeyed. Scripture says they filled them to the brim. They didn't question. They didn't argue. Mary had said, "Do whatever he tells you." And they did. They filled every jar to the brim. Not halfway. Not good enough. All the way full. The servants had no idea what was about to happen, but they obeyed anyway. When the jars were filled to the brim, Jesus gave the second instruction. Now draw some out and take it to the master of the banquet. Imagine their hearts pounding. They had just filled jars with water. Now, they were supposed to serve it to the master of the banquet, the one in charge of the feast. If this is still water, they'll be blamed, fired, humiliated. You don't serve water when the wine runs out. And once more, the servants obeyed. They drew some out. They saw it, smelled it, knew it. This wasn't water anymore. The transformation was complete. Instant, total. What went in as water came out as wine. Not just any wine, not cheap wine they quickly bought to cover the shortage. Not good enough wine to get through the crisis. The best wine these servants had ever seen. And in that moment, the servants knew. They had drawn water. They had filled the jars. They had obeyed instructions that made no sense. And they had witnessed a miracle. The servants brought the cup to the master of the banquet, the man overseeing the feast, ensuring everything ran smoothly, managing the servants. He took the cup. He tasted it, and his eyes widened. This wasn't just wine. This was extraordinary wine. The master of the banquet called the groom over, and he said something that has echoed through history. Everyone brings out the choice wine first, and then the cheaper wine after the guests have had too much to drink, but you have saved the best till now. The groom had no idea what he was talking about. He hadn't saved anything. He had run out. This wasn't his wine. He didn't know where it came from, but he wasn't about to correct the master of the banquet in front of everyone. So he accepted the praise, probably completely confused. Meanwhile, the servants stood nearby, exchanging glances. They knew. They had drawn the water. They had seen the transformation. They knew this wine came from stone jars that had held water moments before. And Jesus sat quietly among the guests. No announcement. No, look what I did. No seeking of credit or praise. He had simply met a need, prevented a shame, blessed a celebration. But something profound had just happened. Scripture tells us what Jesus did here in Cana of Galilee was the first of the signs through which he revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. Peter, Andrew, James, John, they had left everything to follow him based on John the Baptist's testimony and Jesus' words. But they hadn't seen him do anything supernatural yet. Until now, this was his first sign, his first miracle, his first public act of supernatural power. And it revealed his glory, his divine nature, his creative power, his compassionate heart. Everyone runs out of something. Money runs out before the month ends. Patience runs out with your kids. Energy runs out before the work is done. Hope runs out in the waiting. Strength runs out in the trial. Joy runs out in the grief. Options run out in the crisis. You planned. You've prepared. You've calculated. But life demands more than you have. The supply is exhausted. The tank is empty. You got nothing left. This is when Jesus does his best work. Not when you're full and self-sufficient. Not when you have backup plans and reserve resources. But when you've run out. When you're empty. When you've got nothing left. We live in a culture of abundance and appearance. We're supposed to have enough. More than enough. We're supposed to look successful, prepared, adequate. Everyone else seems to have it together. And you're just trying not to run out. Jesus doesn't need your extraordinary to do extraordinary things. He just needs your willingness, your availability, your ordinary offered to him. All he asks is that you bring him your empty jars. Present your need. Trust his method. Do whatever he tells you. Fill the jars with water even when you need wine. Obey even when it doesn't make sense. Trust even when you can't see. So come to him with your empty, your lack, your shame, your need, your running out places, and watch him fill your ordinary jars with extraordinary wine. Because that's who he is. That's what he does. And the best is yet to come. If this story has reminded you that Jesus cares about your celebrations, your ordinary joys, and your running out places, please subscribe to this channel. We're creating a complete series on the miracles of Jesus, bringing each powerful encounter to life through animation. These videos take weeks to create. Careful research, beautiful animation, theological depth with practical application. Every like, comment, sharing, and subscription helps us continue this mission. Thank you.